as you continue to scale and exit these big companies and build your brand and get more and more attention and known, how do you bring it back down to the humility?
I think it's linking the two. So it's trying to link, these good things are happening because I'm decreasing this thing.
That's smart.
And so that way I can have a positive reinforcing association with the success that would normally amplify the wrong character traits.
Yeah. What do you think would happen if your ego was at the highest level right now?
I think a lot more people would not like it. I don't think the message would get across, because, to be fair, I think the message would stop. The spread would happen much slower or not at all, because the message would change, because the message wouldn't be about the message, it would be about me. Mm-hmm. And I think that probably the reason that this has grown so much is because you've tried to quiet yourself so that the message and the idea can spread to as many people as possible, and you put the message on the pedestal rather than Lewis on the pedestal.
Yeah, of course.
And I think your audience realizes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what do you think? You were making $50K the first couple of years out of college. You saved $50K within 2 years, which is amazing. So you were disciplined. Yeah. What was the habit or the switch from 1 year to the next that started to bring in more abundance financially? Not in an incremental 20%, but it was like, boom, this was 5X, 10X. What was that habit or mindset shift for you that started to develop more income?
So there's like the science and the art, kind of both sides. So like the science side is just the leverage. So the amount of money you make is proportional to the amount of leverage you employ in your life. And so, 4 types of leverage. This is not mine. This is Naval Ravikant's, but I'll just say them. Yeah. So you've got labor. I use 4 C's because it's easier for me to remember. He says labor, I say collaboration. So funny that you said that earlier. Yeah. But it's just getting other people to basically use their time, right, for your cause. The second level of leverage is other people's money, is getting people to invest in your thing. And then the next two so these two are permissionless. The first one's like you need to get someone's permission to work for you. You need to get someone's permission to give you their money. The other two are permissionless, so you can do them on your own. One is media, which is what you have here, because the cost of making one video and having one person see it versus 1 million people see it is the same cost, right? And then the other is code, right? So I say content and code. So those are my 4 C's. So collaboration, capital, content, code. And and those are not binaries. It's not, am I using other people? Am I not using other people? It's to what extent am I using other people? Do I use other people's money? Yes or no? No. It's how much of other people's money am I using? And so each of these are continuums, not binaries. So like somebody could just use other people's money and be a billionaire because of the extent they use it. But those are the types of leverage that exist. And so as my income went up, it was by proportion to the amount of leverage I was employing.
Really? What of these 4 were you leveraging the most?
So in the beginning, I had no leverage because I was an employee, right? I was using my own time. The next thing that I started doing was I became self-employed, right? So I had a little online training business that I started in between my quitting my job and starting the gym. And so when I started the gym, I started getting labor was the
Other
first.
people, yeah.
Not a lot of it, but I got some of it. And so that gave me that first next tier. I went from making
part-time interns.
I went from $5,000 a month to I think about $30,000 a month. So that was the big jump. And it's just I had a team. I made a small team, but I had a team, right?
Now that's overall in revenue. That's not your take home. That's in sales. You might have been losing money or whatever.
Yeah, right. I was probably making $20,000 a month at that point
for yourself.
Yes,
after expenses and team and everything.
Yeah, that was then. And then
what did that feel like going from 5 to 20? Did that make you feel something different? Was there a shift inside of you when you took that action?
Because for me, when I started this, it was all about vanquishing my father. So it was all about, I was a Middle Eastern father, only child. So like I was raised by a single dad. It was just me and him. That was it for the vast majority of my life. And so he's Middle Eastern, came here with $1,000, became he was a doctor, came here, learned English from watching television. Wow. You know what I mean? Has the American success story. Absolutely.
That's amazing.
And so I was born here though.
Speaking another language too?
French was my first actually. There's a whole story around it, but anyways. But yeah.
French is your, how many languages do you speak?
That's the best one. I'll just leave it at that. But all of it was about making him proud, right?
So that's what you did. You set out to do that.
That's what I was trying to do. And then I think that throughout my adolescence, I realized that it was something that was always going to be withheld from me. So it didn't matter what it was. The goalpost would always move so that...
He would never be proud enough?
Right. And it was because he wanted the most out of me. And so if I got, let's say, a 99 on a test, it wasn't congratulations, it's what'd you get wrong.
Oh, man.
Right. And that was always what it was. It's okay. We're cool. I'm very happy with my life.
Yeah.
And I realized that. And so this desire to gain approval turned into a very deep anger. And so
towards the world, him, yourself, other people?
Mostly him. mostly him. And most, like him and myself probably split, probably 50-50, you know what I mean? And so it was like my earlier, I'll say, quote, success was purely fueled by rage. Like it wasn't
so funny,
like,
man.
it was rage. You know what I mean?
I was in the same boat, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, but there was probably some element of me that just like almost enjoyed the suffering, because like I just would get in the space when you ask like, how did I feel by getting the extra $20,000 a month? First, my goal was to make as much as my dad, and then it was to make more than my dad, and then it was to make more than my dad had ever made in his whole life.
Wow.
And so once I had done that, I wanted the success to be unquestionable. Like there couldn't be a but, there couldn't be an asterisk. It had to be so undeniable that vanquishing was the word, right?
Wow.
And so for a 5-year period after I quit my job, my dad did not support. He didn't support me quitting my job.
Why not? Even though you were off making money and building a business, and
because he didn't. He's like, what are you, a gym owner? Like he's like, you went to Vanderbilt. You were on a management consulting correct? You got above Harvard's mid score for your.
You could have had a credible career.
Of course,
right?
Gym owner doesn't sell well in cocktail parties, right? What do you? He's figuring himself out.
He's doing this little gym as a side thing.
Yeah. He'll snap out, right? And so, I mean, I made plenty of mistakes too when I had the gym. So it wasn't like all sunshine and rainbows for me. Like I had a lot of mess ups that I did. I got in bad partnerships. I mean, like all the things that you could possibly do. And over that 5-year period of me scaling to 6 locations with my facilities, at the end of that whole thing, I ended up losing it all.
Really?
Yeah, lost everything.
6 locations, lost the whole business.
Yeah, well, I sold 5 of them. I shut one of them down because I wanted to start doing this gym launch thing, which would be like flying around doing turnarounds. Because I started that's when I met Layla.
You find a gym that's kind of like not succiding, you turn it around.
Fly in,
and you do a makeover.
Exactly. Bar rescue, same thing, like same exact thing.
Should have done a TV show with it.
Believe me, the many regrets I have, right? That would have been an awesome one. We did 32 turnarounds.
Wow.
It was almost 2 years, yeah. And so we started doing that. And anyways, I lost everything because I took all the sale money and I put it into my last location, and then the partner that I had there siphoned the money out. Because I was like, I'll put all the money from the sale of these gyms into this thing. Like, anyways, it doesn't matter. It was my own mistake. It was on me. But it was, even then it was, we'll see how long, like this isn't real, like we'll see. And then once Gym Launch really started taking off, it wasn't until I think we did like 17 million in EBITDA, like profit take home.
In 1 year?
In 1 year. That my dad, I was 27.
That's crazy.
Yeah. my dad called me and he's like, "Are you sitting down?" And I remember like at this point, like we were like not talking too much. You know what I mean? Maybe every few months it'd be like a 5-minute phone call. And so I was like, "Sure, yeah, I got time. What's up?" And he's like, "You're gonna want to hear this." And I was like, "Okay, what?" And he's like, "I'm sorry." And it was the first time he'd ever apologized to me in my life. And what's interesting to me though is that it didn't feel like anything. I didn't care.
Why not?
Because I had stopped caring about what he thought about me a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And it was like when I quit my job was the day that like I accepted dying to my father.
Wow.
Because very much to me at that point was I was really, really sad at that point in my life when I had the job, because I had really done everything that he had wanted me to do. I finished Vanderbilt in 3 years as president of fraternity. I had won writing awards. I'd done like a bunch, I'd done everything. You know what I mean? I was vice president of the powerlifting team.
Every club,
all the stuff I could possibly do. Yeah,
finished
it. While still being president, and did it in 3 years, right? And got a management consulting job that was like a good job, had all the credibility, and I knew it wasn't enough, and I knew that, and so I knew that the choice for me was that I either had to die to him or I had to die to myself.
Wow.
And that was ultimately like the choice that I put in front of myself. And that was whenever I was like, maybe I should just I was like, die to him or die to you. And so that was what gave me the confidence to break that. And then I physically moved because I couldn't be in the same area.
Wow.
So I actually...
You're 23 at this point? Or 20?
Yeah. So I called my dad when I was like in Ohio, and I was from Baltimore.
That's
so I'm like,
it
was for you. I called him when I was there, and I was like, hey, by the way, I'm doing the gym thing. And he was like, okay. It's like, why don't you come over? We'll talk about it. Because he knew that if he came over with enough battering, I would be like, fine, I know this is a smart thing. I'll take I'll apply to Booth and Harvard, whatever, and I'll do that whole thing. And because that was a cycle. I just kept doing that. And I was just like, no, I'm not going to do it. So I was like, well, I can't. I'm in Ohio. He was like, what do you mean? And then the tone totally shifted. And he was like, you always do these crazy things. And you're always like, he's like, you're never balanced. It's always extreme with you. There's no middle path, blah, blah, blah. And so anyways, I did that, 5 years gyms, lost it all anyways. And then started Gym Launch. And then that really took off.
Sure.
And then, but when he called me and he apologized, and this is where I I'm ashamed of myself, but like, I could have just let it lie and been like, thanks, appreciate it,
What'd you do instead?
Instead, I was like, when people get up on stage and they're like, hey, they get awards and they're like, hey, mom and dad, I just want to say thanks so much for always believing in me. I was like, I won't say that.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, because you never did. I was like, the only time you accepted me, I was like, was once every other person on this planet had accepted it too.
Oh my gosh, man.
And so,
so
I said that.
That's intense. On the phone, he said that?
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
He said, well, we'll see how long it lasts.
Oh my gosh.
So that was...
So he was still kind of in competition with you.
Yeah, and to be fair, when he apologized, he said, I'm sorry. He said, but in my defense, if it had been in my time, I would have been right. And so, but all that to say, like, I should have just said, like, appreciate the apology, thank you. Because, Tony Robbins said something that I thought was really impactful, was like, for the vast majority of my life, it's been like how my father shaped me or whatever. But rather than thinking like, what can I use from this dynamic? Like, what gift do I have?
Yeah, like from his mother, kind of like beating him or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do I, they're blaming for the good, right? And so like, I have so many things to blame for good from that, and I'm very, very happy with my life. That is why $20,000 a month didn't feel significant to me, because the goal that I had, my expectations weren't to make money. My expectation was that I had to make more than he had ever made. And so I had a very big vacuum to drive towards, which I think in a lot of ways was a gift, because like I blew past 100,000 a month, 500,000 a month, million a month. Like I blew past those things because like it was never about having enough money for me. It was about feeding this monster. But once I got there, I realized that what I had done was set up a game to win by my father's rules.
Ooh.
And so then
And you could never win.
Right. And to be fair, would I want to win a game that wasn't for me?
And it was making you suffer.
Sure.
You're playing the wrong game.
I'm playing his game.
Yeah.
And so I did win, but I won at his game, not mine.
Right.
And so that was kind of what I think making that realization was kind of the slow shift that happened from there.
So when you won the financial game, or the game of like, I've made more than you've in a month or a year than you've made your whole lifetime.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel? And when did you realize you needed to start playing a different game? And what would that game become?
Okay. There was 3 questions there. What was the first one?
How did it make you feel the moment you crossed the finish line of the game of making so much more than he'd ever made in a short amount of time?
Relief, because we actually got our relationship back. Not like, I wouldn't say we have like sunshine and rainbow, but like we have a functioning relationship. I would say it's role-based. Like I'm
Yes.
But what happened was we are both very like strong personalities, and it wasn't until I think that he accepted me as alpha in our relationship that we were able to kind of like move forward again. Because before that, my dad's, he's a doctor, so he's always had, like decent money. And I wanted to be beholden to no one, including him. Like I didn't want his money. I didn't want anything, and so I think I had to establish my own, I had to like really plant my own flag to be seen as a man in his eyes. And so I think once that happened, I think I felt there was some level of like, there's no conflict here anymore. Like, this is undeniable.
Yeah.
This is beyond reproach.
Yes.
I have a attractive wife who's really nice and awesome. I have a business that makes them. I'm in good shape. And if you think about it, like I'm just being really real with you. I blame my father for the many things that I have become in a lot of ways, right? Because everything that was not perfect was criticized, right? And so like, I've had a 6-pack since I was 15.
Wow.
And it was because he used to always criticize everyone who was overweight, and being that they're undisciplined and they don't try hard, right? And then and then it was like about having pretty good, nice, everything, perfect women, right?
Yes.
Not just pretty, but like everything has to be perfect, right? And then making lots and lots of money. And so it's like all of these elements I had to max out to again win at that game. But my whole life was designed to be bulletproof. So that I just wouldn't be criticized. And so that was. Because that was what I knew that if I could criticize myself harder than anyone could, then if they did say anything, it was never as mean as what I would say to me.
What's the meanest thing you say to yourself?
Oh, like, it's all around just not being good enough.
Right now?
You know what I mean? Oh, not now.
Okay.
Not now.
But
I would say,
what it was, yeah.
100%. And it was about being, to be fair, the actual thing would just be being weak. And so it was all about strength.
Mentally, emotionally, physically
All
weak,
of it.
everything. Financially
Literally,
weak, everything.
Just weak.
That's
just
how you
powerless.
felt.
Yes.
You felt powerless for most of your teens and 20s?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
And so everything that I did was to counteract that, right? Like, what can I do
Get as big and strong as I can get, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to make as much money as possible, have all the women I can get, yeah.
Exactly, 100%. And so I pushed against that to try and to quell that, that need or that desire, that feeling.
Did it satiate that need when you had all those things?
Yes and no. Yes, because when I got there, it forced me to change my perspective. The perspective is what changed the way I felt. Basically realizing that those things were never going to solve anything is what allowed me to. And Les Brown, I think, says this, where he says, like, everyone knows that money doesn't make happiness, but everyone's like, I'll see for myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it was one of those, like, I had to cross all the, like, and I say this not as a slight to anyone else, but like I had to check off the easy ones from the list, which is like from getting in shape, getting the good wife, getting the money in the business, all that stuff. Like those are circumstantial. That means I can push with enough effort, I can change my conditions, I can change my surroundings and my environment. And if I can change those things, will they make me feel better? And so I think once I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that didn't work.
Right.
Maybe
they helped in some ways, but not the internal ways. So what did you have to shift your perspective, or what was that shift where you could still have it all and then have it all internally as well?
I think that the whole ego death concept that we were talking about at the very beginning, I try not to talk about this too much because I think it's a lot of people take offense to it, and I don't mean it that way. I share this is just what worked for me and not as a criticism of anyone else's beliefs. For me, the idea that there was no such thing as legacy, that when I died, eventually everything that I had would become dust, and that anything expanded over a long enough time horizon disappears, right? Which if you are like Christian, for example, it's the whole book of Ecclesiastes. And I think the realization of that allowed me to quiet my ego a lot, so that I could be more present in the idea that like this moment will only be here in my mind, and anything that I do here will not last. And so it shifted how I worked. It shifted how I saw relationships. And a lot of my thinking is around like my 85-year-old self. I feel like my number one mentor is like my fictitious 85-year-old self, because it's the only person that I really believe has my best interest at heart and has no ulterior motive. And so there's this tweet that I had that went pretty viral, but it was like listening to a billionaire or a millionaire, I'll just use that. Like when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be a millionaire. And when I was a millionaire, I wanted to be in my 20s. And so the idea that my future self would trade all the money he had to be poor in 20 again made me really reanalyze how I saw living life in the moment. If I literally in the future will value my present moment more than the achievement of the thing that I'm seeking right now in the present, then something's off. Because even my future self knows that. Because right now I would pay all the money I have to get 10 years back.
Isn't that
not even
interesting?
thinking about it. And so then all of what I'm going to achieve in the next 10 years, I would happily give up to be right where I am right now. And so I think thinking about that really shifted a lot for me, because it helped me quiet, I'm not saying eliminate, but quiet some of the thoughts that are more ego driven. Because the ego always wants to like separate and isolate from others and prove that it's better. And if I know that it will all be dust, there is no better, because we're all going to be dust. And so in that same way, if we're all going to be dust and we're all siblings, like two very strong frames, for me at least, it helped me quiet that aspect. And I think in that way, I was able, ask my people, but like I think I was able to show up better as a leader. I think I was able to show up better as a husband, show up better like to make content, things like that. Like I don't think I could have made the stuff we make now 5 years ago, because I still think it would have been too
proving something.
Yes,
right?
It was perfect.
Numbers, proving.
100% of it proving a fictitious foe wrong. Right. They're all talking about me.
Right. No one cares about you.
No, exactly. And so that was really, and it's like I had to shift from like no one cares about you to like I really want to have a shirt that says "No Lives Matter," but I feel like it would get way too.
No one cares about you.
But I think there's like a lot of like meat to that, where it's like if we can, because in that way we are all equal, and so I think it's almost the most egalitarian perspective is that like in the end we will all be dust, and so I think in that way that's like we have these exchanges that we have. And in some ways it makes it more beautiful. Pains and problems that your customers complain to you about. And so like the gold is always in the support tickets. So when you talk about like obsessing about a customer, right? It's let's go through all the comments on the videos, right? Let's go through all of the support tickets that are coming in, and those complaints, inside of the complaints, sure, like